What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. So the 2013 NBA draft class is kind of looked back on as one of the worst draft classes in like probably recent memory, maybe even of all time. And there's already been a lot of discussion about this year's draft class and how it isn't really up to par of that of like recent years, that people think there's a lot of low ceiling guys or guys that just like if they went 5 in this year, they would have been like 25 the year before, like stuff like that. And so I've actually been thinking about for a while making a video like this where I'm comparing the two, but I had something happen to me like 2 days ago that really prompted me to want to make this video now. So I had a friend reach out to me the other day and they sent me a Google Doc and they're like, do you remember making this in like middle school? And it was basically a document where we took like a bunch of draft prospects and like rated where we thought like they would kind of be in their career in a couple of years. And I figured what we could do is we could go through that because it was a pre-draft analysis, which is kind of a cool thing to look back on, and then take a look at what we think going into this year's class and kind of compare what class looks better from the outside before anything actually happens. Now, I know all of that was kind of confusing to understand, so I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So in essence, as a kid, me and my buddy went and we talked about like each prospect or whatever, and this isn't the exact document. I've kind of reformatted things for the video purposes. I've also fixed some grammar mistakes that I made as a kid, and I don't want you to know how stupid I was, so just leave it be. And you'll see that after like each player and what I wrote about them, I wrote where I thought they would end up. And this isn't like an exact order either. This is in draft order, right? So I had these guys in a much different order. But what we're going to do is we're going to categorize like where I thought each of these 2013 draft players would go. It doesn't look great even just from looking at it. And then we'll compare to the 2024 class and see from the outside which class looks better. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's see what I wrote about Anthony Bennett. And again, I changed up the words a little bit just to actually make it make sense, but it's like 98% what I wrote as a kid. So you can see even from like a young age, I really wanted to be like in on basketball, and I wanted to be a coach, and I wanted to be a scout, and I got to do all those things. So that's really cool. But Anthony Bennett, what did I write about him? A versatile forward out of UNLV. I just love the choice of words and everything. I tried to sound so smart. Bennett has shown exceptional athleticism and scoring ability during his college career. His ability to play both inside and outside makes him a coveted prospect for teams needing offensive firepower. Boy, could I have not been more wrong. Now, obviously, Anthony Bennett was probably one of the biggest busts of like all time, but I had him as a role player. Apparently, as a kid, I said, yeah, no, this guy's got a little bit of ability here and there. He looks pretty athletic. I probably watched a lot of his dunks. Mind you, I think I was 13 at the time of this, so just take that as you will. And I was like, no, yeah, this guy will be a good offensive weapon one day. Nope, was not the case whatsoever. But apparently, back in the day, I saw Anthony Bennett being a role player. This is definitely where he was in real life, but we saw Anthony Bennett as a role player. Next up, Victor Oladipo. Oladipo is an explosive guard who excels on both ends of the floor with his athleticism, defensive prowess. Look at me. I was definitely like watching too much ESPN at this point when I was listening to this stuff. And improving offensive skills. He has the potential to become a cornerstone player for any franchise, star player. And so I'll just tell you guys where I had him ranked as well. I had him as the number 2 guy in this class. He was my number 2 player. Anthony Bennett was not my number 1, and I think you guys will be surprised who my number 1 is. So just wait, okay? But I saw Victor Oladipo as a star. And Oladipo ended up becoming a star in the NBA until he had a couple really unfortunate injuries along the way. And even as recent as like 2 years ago, he was a really productive NBA player. It's kind of a shame what happened to the guy. Seems like a really good dude, and I was kind of right about it. Shout out me with Victor Oladipo, 13-year-old me. Otto Porter Jr., a skilled small forward with a high basketball IQ. I guarantee you I said that because he went to Georgetown. Porter has demonstrated his ability to score efficiently and contribute in various aspects of the game. His versatility and defensive instincts, I think I used some other word instead of instincts and I changed it because it didn't even make any sense, make him an intriguing prospect for teams looking to bolster their wing position. I did use the word bolster. I felt pretty proud of myself reading that back. I said he's a starter. I believe I had him as like the number 3 prospect in this class as well, so that made some sense. All right, I saw Otto Porter Jr. as a starter, and I would say that's a pretty accurate description of what he was for a while in his career, man. He was a nice starter in Washington for a while, ended up becoming more of a role player towards the end of his career, and ultimately won a championship, so shout out Otto Porter. Next up, we got Cody Zeller of the Charlotte Bobcats at the time. Zeller possesses an impressive combination of size, agility, and skill for a big man. His ability to run the floor, finish around the basket, and rebound effectively make him a valuable asset for teams in need of front court depth, but I wrote him as a bust. So whatever I was writing back then, I guess I was just trying to say like good things about each player. I don't know. I was probably reading mock drafts similar to that at the time, and that's what I was going for. But I said he was a bust, and I can guarantee you it was solely appearance-based, because I know I hadn't watched enough film on him or anything like that. I just said, I'm looking at this guy, this Indiana big man or whatever. He just doesn't seem to make any sense. He doesn't look like a basketball player. And you know what? I was wrong. Cody Zeller ended up becoming like a solid starter in the NBA for a little bit. Yes, it was on the Charlotte Hornets and Bobcats, and like, yes, they were never very good, but he was like an effective player and a solid defender for like a while there. So we won't say he was like starter. We'll say he was like role player quality, but he was a starter on a bad team. So I guess I can't say I was right about Cody Zeller by any means, but you know, I had my opinions back then, and that's what it was. Next one, Alex Len. A lot of people thought that Alex Len was going to go one in this draft to Cleveland, but kind of interesting. A towering center with excellent shot blocking abilities and developing offensive game. Len has the potential to anchor a team's defense in the paint. His size and mobility make him an intriguing prospect with the upside to become a dominant force in the NBA. I thought Alex Len was apparently going to be a starter, and I could not have been more wrong about that, but we're going to throw him there for now, right? Because we're trying to compare what we think before going into the draft, right? But obviously Alex Len never really figured a lot of things out. He's still in the NBA, and there's a lot of credit to that, and obviously because he's big and strong, like that just goes a long way. That can help you keep roster spots and everything, but just never really like found his footing in the NBA, and he's had some nice reserve roles as a bench warmer and everything, but otherwise not anything too crazy. Next one I have is Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel probably would have been the first overall pick in this draft if he hadn't torn his ACL going into it, but anyway, let's talk about it. Despite coming off an injury, Noel's shot blocking prowess, I use the same word again, that sounds like me, and defensive instincts make him one of the most intriguing prospects in the draft. I'm so glad I'm not letting you guys read the main thing, and no, I'm not going to let you. Don't ask for it in the comments. It's bad. I don't want you to know how unintelligent I actually am. With his athleticism and work ethic, he has the potential to become a game-changing presence in the paint. I said starter, and you know what? I truly believe that Nerlens Noel would have been a starter quality guy if he could have stayed healthy. And also, like, the Sixers situation he went to was like the beginning of the process and everything. Like, he just never really quite got the chance to figure things out. He didn't have enough of a game to really get going. I think about it now, and I feel like if a guy like Noel was entering the draft, he would have had a better career because we had a better idea of what to do with a kind of a run, jump, and dunk big like this. But regardless, man, I saw Nerlens Noel as a starter, and I loved that flat top, man. I remember I had a 2K my career where I played on the Sixers, and I threw so many lobs to him, man. Shout out Nerlens Noel. Next up, 7, Ben McLemore. Y'all remember Ben McLemore? Well, I certainly do, because he was the guy I thought should go number 1 in the draft, and I thought he was going to be an absolute superstar. And I can almost guarantee you that's because I was watching March Madness in that game. I think it was playing Michigan. I think that was the game. And I was like, this kid McLemore's going to be a stud. McLemore is an explosive shooting guard with elite athleticism and a smooth shooting stroke. Yeah, that never quite figured itself out. Well, there was a point in Houston later in his career, yeah. His ability to create his own shot, yeah, that didn't happen, and knock down perimeter jumpers makes him a coveted prospect for teams in need of scoring from the backcourt. I said star. I said, Ben McLemore, sign me the fuck up for it. Basically, this was my 1 and 2 right here, and I believe I had like 3 was Otto Porter, 4 was like Nerlens Noel or something, and then I think 5 was like Len. I think my ranking of like Bennett was like 11 or something like that. So you know what? I was on the case. Y'all in Cleveland could have used me in the front office that day. No, I really thought Ben McLemore was going to be that dude. Like I thought he was going to be like the next Kobe or something. I remember telling people at school, I'm like, Ben McLemore is going to be it. He's going to be it. I blame Sacramento slightly because they weren't very good at developing prospects at the time. But you know what? I was wrong. That's on me. 13-year-old Andrew had no idea what the hell he was talking about. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Is this the first one where like the name is still prevalent today? I would say so. To the Detroit Pistons. A talented shooting guard with a deadly outside shot and solid defensive skills. Young AVC was on the 3-and-D already. Caldwell-Pope has the potential to become a valuable two-way player in the NBA. I actually I haven't really thought about anything I've actually read here too much. His ability to stretch the floor and guard multiple positions make him a desirable prospect for teams looking to improve their perimeter game. Role player. Okay, so like if I had to categorize him nowadays, he'd fall into the starter thing because that's how good he is. But I kind of nailed the analysis of KCP, and you know, coming into the league, people saw him as a bust because he just like couldn't figure it out, and that's just Detroit, man. That's just how it is, unfortunately. But as soon as he got like that chance with the Lakers and people were really hating on him at first, and then he started to figure things out a little bit more, and now obviously he's a championship level starter and a big time contributor on a really good team. Shout out KCP, man, the first guy from this draft class that's actually really like become or is still prevalent. Like Victor Oladipo was obviously that dude for a little bit there. It's just obviously career was cut short. All right, so that's the first one that I like probably nailed. Well, maybe we could say the Oladipo one I kind of nailed too, right? So like we'll give young me some credit for that. Trey Burke. Burke is a dynamic point guard with exceptional ball handling skills and court vision. That was probably true. His ability to create plays for himself and his teammates, coupled with his leadership qualities, make him an enticing prospect for teams in need of a floor general. So like, where did I come up? This just sounds like something I wrote because it sounded nice or whatever, right? Like, I'm sure I just heard a broadcaster say that at some point, because how would I know? I've never seen them be like a leader or anything like that. I'm just making shit up. But I really liked Trey Burke. And again, probably because I watched him in the same game as Ben McLemore or whatever in March Madness. And I was like, this guy's going to be an NBA superstar. Trey Burke's that man. And I saw Trey Burke as a starter, apparently. So let's take Trey Burke and AVC, young AVC going into this draft said, hey, like, there's a couple stars, a couple starters, pretty solid draft class. I was like, a couple role players here. Cody Zeller, we don't trust him. He looks like an accountant. Yeah, no, Trey Burke just never found his footing in the NBA. Could just never quite get it going. Like, it looked like maybe at the very beginning of his career there was going to be something, and then it just kind of fizzled out very, very quickly. I wonder whatever happened to Trey Burke. I have no idea. Next one, CJ McCullum. Oh, you guys can already see I messed this one up. McCullum is a versatile combo guard, I got that right, with a polished offensive game. That's true. His ability to score from anywhere in the court, coupled with his ball handling and playmaking skills, make him a valuable asset for teams looking to add a scoring punch to their backcourt. I really phrased all of these like the exact same way. I was such a moron as a kid, man. I've gotten a lot better as a writer. I actually had a writing professor that I found at one point. I basically convinced this guy to work with me for free in high school, and he made me a much better writer just because it was a big deficiency of mine in growing up. But anyway, I said he was a bench warmer, and I can almost guarantee you why. It's because I looked at him and I was like, this guy's way too skinny. He looks malnourished. There's no way he's going to be a good NBA player. I judged so much based off of appearance back then because that's what kids do, right? It's exactly what they do. But I said CJ McCollum, bench warmer. And I'm like, he's not going to fall out of the league. He's just going to be one of those guys that comes in as like a spark plug every once in a while, but isn't going to be a good defender or anything like that. I wish I would have written some stuff about like what I thought their deficiencies were and everything, but I probably wasn't even smart enough to think about that at the time. So I don't know, is what it is. Let's go on to the next one. Michael Carter Williams, the eventual rookie of the year in this class and owner of like the best opening game to their career of all time. Carter Williams is a long athletic point guard with excellent court vision and defensive instincts. That was true at the beginning of his career for sure. His ability to distribute the ball and disrupt passing lanes, that's a great phrase right there, make him a promising prospect for teams in need of a playmaking floor general. So it sounds like I was kind of like categorizing all these guys in the last sentence. I was very formulaic with it, but I still said bench warmer. And that's probably because he couldn't shoot, and that probably confused me as a kid. And you know what? Like, at the beginning of my career, I was wrong. Michael Carter Williams was a solid starter in the NBA, and then he kind of fell off. Like, he had some decent times with Orlando at the end, and decent's maybe even a generous word. But you know what? Rookie of the year at the end of the day, was a nice starter in Milwaukee for a period of time there. We can say, what can I say? I was right about that one? I don't know. Like, probably not, because he had a good start to his career. I think the game just evolved while he was in it to a point where he got fizzled out. Next one, Steven Adams, another guy still around today. Adams is a rugged center with great size, strength, and defensive instincts. His ability to protect the rim and rebound effectively, coupled with his improving offensive skills. I wonder what I meant by that, because he did not do much like that in college. Like, he was really just kind of under the rim and bruising people. Make him a valuable asset for teams looking to bolster their front court. I need to stop saying that. I'm like cringing a little bit now, like seeing stuff like that. But role player, well, wasn't right about that one. Was not right about Steven Adams. Steven Adams, definitely like full-time starter, like as soon as he got in the NBA, and hasn't really looked back, man. Like we'll probably see him for the first time really come off the bench this next year in Houston. And man, he's had an incredible career. All-time teammate guy, one of the meanest screen setters the NBA's ever seen, and just his hair has evolved to lengths that we never even thought possible. So shout out Steven Adams, man. Next one, Kelly Olynyk. I didn't know it was a trade, actually. I don't even remember that really. But Olynyk is a skilled big man with the ability to stretch the floor with his outside shooting. That's what stretching the floor means, AVC, and didn't need to explain it anymore. His basketball IQ, passing ability, and versatility make him a promising prospect for teams in need of front court depth and offensive firepower. Would we say that's a pretty accurate representation? Well, not me, apparently, because I said he was going to be a bust. And again, I was probably just judging because he was like a big old white guy at Gonzaga that had really long hair, and I probably just thought he looked dumb or something like that. Looking at Kelly Olynyk now, some guy that's still around and still getting traded for first-round picks and stuff nowadays. So, man, like, shout out Kelly Olynyk. He's had an impressive career. He's been incredibly consistent the entire time. Can never say he's gotten like worse. He's just kind of always maintained who he was in the league, and it's been a long career. So shout out Kelly Olynyk, man. Last one then, Shabazz Muhammad. Do y'all remember when we found out that dude wasn't actually like his age or whatever? That was a whole thing. Utah Jazz traded to the Timberwolves. Muhammad is a dynamic scoring wing. That was not true at all. With the ability to put up points in bunches. Not true. His athleticism, that was true. Scoring instincts and aggressiveness make him an intriguing prospect for teams in need of offensive firepower on the perimeter. Again, not true. I called him a bust, and I was right. I could sniff out that dude was like 2 years older than he said he was. I never believed him for a damn second. All right, ignore this. I brought in a bunch of white things to kind of help separate things to help us look at everything. So just calm down. It's fine. These are low-quality YouTube videos anyway. But anyway, reminder to subscribe and comment. I respond to every single comment on my YouTube channel ever, and I'll continue to do it until it's not feasibly possible anymore. But anyway, let's talk about this year's class. And so I brought in 14 guys that are kind of the presumed lottery as of right now, just looking at a couple mock drafts. We can agree and disagree on like the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th player. That's whatever. I don't care. But I figure what we could do now is I could categorize these guys as to where I think they belong and kind of compare them to where the 2013 class was. And I know I'm comparing myself now to 13-year-old AVC, but I don't know. I just thought this was kind of a fun activity to look back on things and kind of compare lottery picks between the two. And you guys can leave me comments on what you think of these guys and where you think that they could end up. But anyway, let's talk about them, and let's start with Alex Sarr. So obviously Alex Sarr, a lot of defensive potential, could stretch the floor and everything. We think he's going to be able to guard just about everyone and be a really instant impact player in the NBA. Do I think that he's got like star potential? And that's how we're going to have to look at this, right? Like his like star potential. Or you know what? No, I shouldn't even do that. Like, because I rated these guys at the time of like, no, I think these guys are going to be studs. Like, I think they're going to be stars in the NBA for years to come or something like that. So that's not how I want to rank them. I want to rank Alex Sarr as a starter in the NBA. That's where I see him going right now. That's my opinion on him. Looks like I got Matas Buelis next. So this isn't in any particular order. This is just how the pictures got uploaded. So calm down. Matas Buelis is a guy that I'm not very high on. I just don't. I'm so concerned about like his ball handling and everything. I don't think that there's like a ton of upside to him between like his frame being very slight. I don't see a lot of general coordination out of him that I'd like to see out of some of these like stretch bigs. But he is a good shooter for the most part, and so I think for that reason alone, if he can develop that. I don't think he's like a bust. Like, I don't want to say that, but I think he's going to end up becoming a bench warmer at some point in his career, just because he does have some height and he can hit. Like, that's always going to be a guy that can kind of make rosters, but I don't know if I see him being and this is my prediction for like where they're going to be in like a couple years more so, right? Because obviously these guys are going to play, they're going to get rotation minutes, like they're lottery picks, right? That's the whole point. But in a couple years, that's where I see him fitting in. All right, Zachary Reid, we've done a video on him before as well. I think Reid has the potential to be a Michael Porter Jr.-esque player, which is a starter level player, which is very, very good. A guy that can put up a lot of shots and really convert from three on them, especially in the catch and shoot. But I see a lot more athletic potential. Like Michael Porter Jr. isn't great at like moving laterally or anything, whereas Reid has shown that he can be at points. And I think he's still growing into his body. If you guys watched my breakdown video of him, I kind of explain the logic behind that and everything. But I think you got a starter in Zachary Reid. Next one, Donovan Clingan, probably my third favorite prospect in this whole thing. I think Donovan Clingan comes in and makes an instant impact on defense. I think he's going to be able to come in right away, just contribute to a team. I think long-term he could eventually become a hub because I think he's a very smart player. I think he's going to be really good around the rim, just instant impact player. Do I think he's going to be a star player like a Rudy Gobert type? Maybe, but I'm not going to rank him as a star. I'm going to rank him as a starter for now. And that's still a good thing. Like I said, like a Michael Porter Jr. is a starter, right? A star is like a guy making all-star games, right? So I think that these guys could all be very good NBA players, but I just don't see them as like star potential. Nikola Jokic. Unfortunately, Nikola Jokic just got hurt. I've been saying I want to see more film of him, and he just went down the other day, and I honestly haven't looked up to see what was all going on with that. So if you guys know, let me know in the comments or whatever. But Nikola Jokic, aggressive at getting to the hoop, good passer, a lot of size at the point guard spot. His jump shot looks weird, to say the least, and he hasn't converted a lot of them. He did hit his only 2 threes that he attempted in his one game back, so I guess that's something to look at. But long term, what do I think with Nikola Jokic? I kind of see him as maybe more of a role player long term. I'm going to be optimistic that he's going to be smart enough and good enough defensively to stick around at his size, but I don't necessarily see him becoming a starter level player. I think some of his movements are a little too herky-jerky. It worries me a little bit, and let me make this clear. I don't hope anything bad happens to any of these players. I hope they all find great success, right? Some of you guys in the comments think that I really want all these guys to fail and that I hate these guys. I don't hate any of these guys, all right? So just calm down. But this is just what I kind of think when looking at him. I don't see an NBA starter in the guy. I just don't. And if you do, that's cool, but I personally don't see it. Next one, Isaiah Collier. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit for this next part here. Isaiah Collier, very big, strong, athletic guard coming out of USC. At one point, people thought he might go number 1 in the draft, and that just kind of speaks to how unsure everybody is about this NBA draft and everything. But a lot of potential in the kid, right? A lot of athleticism. He's big, he's strong, he's built for the NBA already. Presumably should be a good defender at the point guard spot. Turns the ball over a lot. Can't shoot. It really worries me. I'm not going to lie. I view Isaiah Collier as a bust. That's where I put him right now. I know some of you go, oh, stop it, AVC. Look, somebody here is going to be a bust. Somebody is every year. I see Collier kind of fitting into that role. I worry that if he can't figure out the college game offensively and how to not give them the ball, I feel like he's just going to get terrorized in the NBA right away, and that's not going to let him develop his shot or anything because he's going to lose confidence. It's going to be a whole thing. And so I don't know. That's where I see it ending up. Dalton Connect. No surprise here. He's going to be a role player. We've just seen so many guys like Connect come through the NBA. I feel like we've got a pretty good sample size to just kind of say oh yeah, this is what this guy's going to be. He's a nice 6'6" wing that hopefully can be a nice 3-and-D player, come off some screens, be a real gravity dude, meaning guys are going to want to stick to him because he's such an elite shooter, right? But he can even maybe run in transition a little bit with teams. So I think he's going to be a nice role player. I actually think you're going to see him shoot up the draft boards a little bit as people get all these other guys into their camp and realize these guys aren't as good, but this guy Connect, he looks like he can play right away. So fuck it, let's just take this guy and we'll try and find our star in next year's draft. And now we'll already have a support piece in place for him. That's probably the way I'd look at it. And that's where I see Dalton Connect fitting in. Stephon Castle, much different than the Connect option here. A guy that we hope can be a bit of a secondary ball handler for whatever team he goes to, because he showed a lot of smart passing instincts, and yes, he played at UConn. They teach him really well there, and so that's part of it, right? But we also see a 6'6" guard that can just really lock people down. Problem is, no jump shot whatsoever, and that's kind of the reason why I see him as kind of a role player for now. I think he'll find a role in the NBA because I think he is so athletic and I think he's really smart. I just wonder offensively where he develops to where he can get more starter level minutes down the line. Now, if he goes to Charlotte, maybe he just gets to start right away. Maybe he figures it out. And nobody's ever really figured it out in Charlotte, let's be honest. But maybe now times change. People get rid of front office execs or whatever and get better coaches in. Develop him the right way. I could see him becoming a nice NBA player. He's physically very gifted, but that's where I'm going to put him for now. Holland Jr. All right, kind of a similar story to Isaiah Collier here. Very talented. You look at him and you go, that looks like an NBA player. But when I watch his game, and I'll do a breakdown of him eventually, I get so worried about his decision making. And he just seems like one of those modern guys coming into the NBA where they've got no concept of how to actually play basketball, and they're coming in just running and gunning, thinking they can just out athleticism everybody, don't have any spatial awareness on the court, and just kind of doing things out there. It just doesn't look right. And so for that reason, and I'm gonna preface this, he could, because I think he's going to slip in the draft. I could even see him falling outside of the lottery maybe. And just hold me to that prediction right now. if he does that and ends up on a better team, like let's say like he gets to Miami and Miami's like, well, we can't pass up on this physical prospect, right? Maybe he gets the chance to develop behind some guys. Maybe it works out for him because he's very gifted. But I feel like he's going to be a bust as well. That's just where I'm putting him for now. I'm sorry. I got to put some people there. Just leave me alone. All right, next one, Cody Williams. What an interesting picture I decided to grab for this one. The wing out of Colorado, a guy that we've seen show some ball handling skills at the small forward position, which is always very intriguing, right? Like we've seen him make some pretty slick passes. We've seen him hit some jumpers from the outside. It's just nothing looks great yet. A lot looks like, interesting. Very, very raw prospect. This is a guy that would probably go like in the 20s in most drafts or whatever, but he's probably going to go like 10, 11, something like that. And this one would be my guess. Where do I think he ends up? Like, I think ceiling wise, like he could be a starter. Like I honestly, truly think that if he goes to the right team, like a Memphis picks him or something, he gets to develop around better players. I could totally see it. Now, when we watched his film, there were definitely some concerns about his like explosiveness and athleticism, but I'm going to hope that we can figure out a way around that and he can just be a very, very skilled basketball player that can contribute as like a defender, an extra ball handler, a guy to keep offense going for years to come. Oh, I got both Kentucky guys back to back. That's kind of funny how that worked out. Reid Shepard coming up next. You guys have heard me talk about my concerns with Reid Shepard before. I'm concerned as to who he's going to guard because of his stature, because he's not going to be necessarily quick enough or strong enough to deal with like NBA. The strength is never going to be a thing. He's a very like I don't want to call him weak, but he's just kind of a frail body, right? That's what he is. He's not very strong. He's shown some interesting athletic like promises and like his like jumping ability and stuff, which I think is really interesting. Like he really floats in the air, which is, like I said, very interesting to me. Phenomenal shooter. Like that alone should keep him around in the league, like at the very least a bench warmer. I'm gonna put him as a role player for now. Like I don't see him becoming like a starter just because of his lack of position, right? Is like, does he play the point guard? Does he play the shooting guard? Because if he's at the shooting guard, you've got some defensive problems you're going to run into. And I've seen people talk about like, oh, well, like he has some good defensive instincts. Like he tipped a lot of passes and he blocked a lot of shots. Like I don't think that's going to happen in the NBA. I'm just keeping it real with you. And guys are going to hunt this dude when he's in the NBA. Like they're going to set him up for isolations, clear people out, and he's going to be stuck on an island trying to guard someone way bigger, stronger, faster than him. That's going to be a concern. But even like off ball, that's where I think like another problem becomes, because as soon as you get into offenses where people really start to swing the rock, eventually you got to close out on somebody, and somebody's getting a head of steam coming at you. They're going right through this guy, or they're just shooting over him. And I don't know. It's kind of a concern to me at the end of the day. But I think offensively, he's a smart enough player and he's a good enough shooter to where he's going to stick around in the league as a role player for a while. Rob Dillingham, a guy that's probably the hardest to rate here. I'm going to start off by just putting him here at role player, because I think Rob Dillingham, out of anybody in this class, we can see the path to stardom, if you will, more than any other player. Like you could see the path and progression, right? Like small guard, but really good shot creator, shifty, athletic, decent shooting spurts, took a lot of bad shots, a little bit turnover happy at times too. Again, we wonder about him defensively because he's also extremely, extremely small. And so that alone worries me, but I could see him as being like a dynamic little scorer off the bench, like an Aaron Brooks type guy, you know? So that's what I'm seeing out of Dillingham. That's where I'd put him. But I'm just putting it out there. I just wouldn't be surprised to see him go up in here because I see a lot of talent there. Jacoby Walter out of Baylor. I'm going to put him at bench warmer. And here's why. I see Jacoby Walter wherever he ends up. I feel like it's not going to work out. Like, this is just what I imagine the story being. Like, he's not going to be able to find consistency. He hasn't had a lot of consistency throughout his entire, like, playing career or whatever, right? And he can't quite figure it out, but because he always will show spurts of it, like, 'cause that's just who I think he is. I think he's just kind of a weird, out-of-place guard that puts up good numbers, like, sometimes. Some team's going to give him a second contract to keep him around and be like, let's at least try to develop this guy or whatever, right? Like, I don't think he's just, like, falling out of the league. And, like, most of the time, lottery picks get a second contract, right, from somebody. But that's just kind of what I see out of Jacoby Walter, like the inconsistency and my level of unsureness of what position he plays. Honestly, the defense doesn't even like worry me that much with him. It's just purely the offensive game, which is a big part of it, like his selling, right? And so I don't know. I just don't quite see it out of Jacoby, but I think he'll stick around for a while as people try to unlock it. Last one, Tyler Smith, another hard one for me to rate at the end of the day because my brain tells me that Tyler Smith is going to be a starter in the NBA. He's a 4 that's like 6'11". Some people think he can play the 3. I don't think I'd go that far, but I see him as like a stretch big that can put the ball on the floor a little bit, and that really excites me. But I'm going to put him here at role player for now. And I mean, for now, this is my pre-draft analysis. That's just what it is going to be. But anyway, that's where I think he's going to end up at the end of the day. And I think that he's going to be a very valuable player in the NBA, kind of a Boris Diaw type guy where it's like, yeah, like his skills are always going to be coveted on whatever team can get their hands on him. But I don't think he ever quite becomes a starter. But I'll say I wouldn't be surprised if he found his way up here at some point. So you guys will notice I didn't list any stars at all from the 2024 draft class. I don't see it. And somebody's probably going to prove me wrong. This is just my pre-draft look at it, right? I don't see a star. Last year, I would have looked at Victor Wembanyama, and I would have been like, yep, the dude's a star. If I would have looked at Scoot Henderson, I would have been like, yep, the dude's a star. If I would have looked at Brandon Miller, I would have been like, I think he's going to be a really good starter, right? That's what I noticed out of those guys. This year, I just don't see it. But I think there's a lot of quality players, and this is kind of what I was hoping to highlight in this draft, that I'm like, we may not be very excited about it, but I think a lot of these guys can like help out NBA teams and stick around in the league for years to come. And if we compare it to what I thought about the 2013 class, I was a little more balanced than I was there. Like, I thought that there was a lot better top-end talent at the end of the day back then, and I was like, no, these guys are going to be some solid starters, and how many of them I was wrong about? McLemore, I was wrong about like Len, Noel, Burke. I mean, anything you tried to say about Bennett that wasn't here was wrong, but there were some solid guys that came out of this class as well that we forget about. Like I said, these guys stuck around for a while. KCP and Steven Adams are still doing their thing. CJ McCullum's still a great player in the NBA, and so is Kelly Olynyk, who I said was a bust, but he's proven me wrong every single time. So shout out these guys, man. Let me know where you see this draft class kind of ending up and everything. Are there any guys this year that you would have ranked a star or whatever? What did you think of my little bios that I had? I know this isn't like the greatest presentation format, but I had to make it somewhat like usable for the video or whatever. So just, I don't know. I'm not always great with these ideas, but let me know if you got any suggestions or anything, or if you want to see like my 2012 or 2014 list. I think those are the other two that I had before we inevitably just got bored or lost this file or whatever. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching as always. I appreciate it. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.